So I am on my way to the store to buy all of the Thanksgiving stuff. I actually waited to the last minute, so this is Wednesday, and I decided to shop today just because, well, first of all, Franklin didn't really tell me what he wanted until today. Secondly, I just have been so busy, and Langston was sick over the weekend and early this week, and it's just been like one of those weeks of playing catch up. So this is literally a 24-hour Thanksgiving mission. So this does not require a lot of planning to make the meal that I'm going to make. So Franklin said he wants ham, and like a honey glazed ham, not the kind with like the pineapples and cherries and things, but just like a honey glazed ham. He also wants fresh green beans with bacon, like cooked, of course, but like green beans kind of sauteed with bacon and some seasonings, mashed potatoes and gravy, and he chose dinner rolls over cornbread. So I'm going to make my homemade yeast rolls, only this time I think I'm going to make Parker House rolls instead, just because they're just a little special, and I haven't done a video on Parker House rolls, so I'm going to do videos for all of these things that I'm cooking. He also wants to drink sparkling cider, probably either just regular sparkling cider or the kind with the cranberry flavor to it. And then he wants mac and cheese, so I'm going to make my mac and cheese, which I already have a video for that. So I don't know if I'll do a whole video for my mac and cheese, but I'll just kind of like do part of the prep work for it. I would like to have a pie. Franklin does not like dessert, so he just wants pomegranates and apples because he loves pomegranates. So I told him I'd make him just like a fruit basket for his dessert. So he wants pomegranates and apples for dessert because he doesn't like pie or cake or anything like that. So I love like pumpkin cake, like sponge cake with cream cheese frosting, like rolled up, like a pumpkin cream cheese roll up. I love sweet potato pie. I love pecan pie. I love apple pie. I love cherry pie. I love chocolate cake. I love red velvet cake. There's so many desserts I love, but I don't need, honestly, an entire dessert myself. So I am going to probably make sweet potato pie or pecan pie either in a small version for just like a couple servings, or I might make like a sweet potato pie and then just give one of the pies away and just make like a small pie for me. That sounds so crazy to make like an entire pie just for one person. So my sister is out of town, so she's not going to be here this Thanksgiving. Isaiah's out of the country, so he's not going to be here. And yeah, just me and Franklin and Langston. So Franklin said his main thing is he just wants me to cook because he wants a lot of leftovers, because he's always trying to pack on those pounds, gain some weight. So he wants his ham. So I am gonna do oysters, pan-fried oysters for me instead of the ham, because I'm not a huge ham fanatic. So this is my list of things. This is the menu is at the top, and then the ingredients are at the bottom. So yeah, and my favorite part of Thanksgiving, honestly, besides the pie, is the mac and cheese and the dressing and cranberry sauce, because I love to make a nice homemade cranberry sauce. So yeah, that's what we're gonna make for Thanksgiving this year. So I shouldn't have to buy too much. We'll see how long this takes. Like I said, I'm on a mission with a time frame. So but we'll have tons of leftovers. Everybody will be happy, and hopefully Langston will learn to eat something that he doesn't typically eat, because he's such a picky eater. And I am just determined that he's going to eat Thanksgiving dinner and not a Hot Pocket or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which is what he eats like every day. So here we go. Cheers to the holidays. So the first thing I'm going to do is make my favorite cranberry sauce. So I washed the cranberries. I've got 2 oranges cut in half. and this is just my little orange juicer. So I juice both of the oranges, pour that orange juice into a pan, kind of like a 4-quart pot or pan, I think, I'm not sure, but anyway, medium-sized pan, and then dump in all the cranberries, and then I zested one of the oranges, so you want to put a little bit of zest in there, stir that around, and then put it on the stove and bring it to a boil. I usually put mine on like a 7 or even an 8 just to get it started at a nice high temperature. And when you can hear those berries pop, they'll start popping, which is like the skin is splitting. Then you know that it's, you know, definitely starting to release the pectin into that orange juice. So cranberries have a lot of pectin, which is why you don't have to use cornstarch or flour or anything to thicken them. They thicken themselves. So then I dump in about a cup or so of sugar. I'm using 2 packages of cranberries, like 2 12-ounce packages. So it's quite a bit of cranberries. You can use more or less sugar depending on your taste. And then just go ahead and stir that in and incorporate the sugar into the berries. They're so beautiful. I love this color for the season, for the holidays, for Thanksgiving and Christmas both. I just love the color of cranberries. I love the flavor of cranberries. So then you want to add some vanilla, just like a teaspoon or so of vanilla, a little pour, and just a sprinkle of cinnamon. You don't want a lot of cinnamon, or I don't like a lot of cinnamon, but just like a dash, just barely, just a touch. You're not going to really taste the cinnamon. It's just going to be kind of like an undertone as well as the vanilla. Mostly it's that cranberry and orange that you're going to taste. So these cranberries are not frothing too bad. If your cranberries froth up a lot, you can add a little tablespoon of butter to calm the frothing down. But since everything else I'm cooking has like so much butter in it today, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to add any butter, but you can do that definitely to your cranberry sauce. So just stir it around. It's nice and bubbly. You do want those berries to cook down, and one way of incorporating them when they're cooked is to just take a potato masher and just mash kind of in a circular motion the berries. It's hard to do this and holding my phone, but yeah, so just kind of like mash the cranberries with that to make that nice thick sauce, and you can see that it's getting thicker. You can hear that bubbling with the thickness. You want it to be nice and thick before you take it off of the heat. Definitely don't let anything stick to the bottom of the pan. If it ever sticks to the bottom of the pan and burns, that's going to just ruin your whole cranberry sauce. So then I take my cranberry sauce and put a funnel in a 1-quart jar and pour it in. So there's a little bit left over, but I just put a lid on this and put it in the fridge, and then enjoy the little teeny bit of cranberry sauce that's left in the pan. So the next thing I'm doing is making the dressing or stuffing. I am going to just do a sausage, smoked turkey, regular bread stuffing instead of cornbread stuffing. A lot of times I do the cornbread stuffing. I haven't made actually bread stuffing in a long time. I'm just sauteing the sausage. This is Italian sausage, and I chopped the celery, and I'm gonna also chop some onions. And then when the sausage is done cooking, I just kind of take it out of the pan and saute the onions and celery for a minute, and then stir those in with the sausage. These are my breadcrumbs. So I basically just cubed bread and then toasted it in the oven on broil. So you can see that the sausage and the celery and the onions are all really nice, and the toasted bread, like the toasting of the bread, really does add a little bit of flavor to that just plain white bread. So I've mixed the two together, the sausage with the breadcrumbs, and now I'm just beating up some eggs. I'm beating up 2 eggs, and then I'm adding a can of chicken broth. I'm gonna probably add about 1.5 cans or so total of the chicken broth, and just keep kind of beating it with the eggs so that it blends really nicely as a mixture. And then I'm gonna be pouring this over top of the breadcrumbs, and those breadcrumbs, by the way, are seasoned with a little bit of oregano, some parsley, some garlic powder, some onion powder, and salt and pepper. So then I just go ahead and grease a cake pan. I usually like to use a glass pan actually, but then line it with wax paper and grease the inside of the wax paper. Pour a stick of butter melted over top of that bread and sausage and celery and onion and seasonings mixture, and just mix that in with your hands. It's about a stick of butter minus the butter used to butter the pan, and then the wax paper. It smells so good with the butter, the sausage, all those seasonings, the celery, the onions. And then we're gonna just go ahead and dump in our egg and broth mixture. You want to kind of dump in some and stir it around and make sure that it's absorbing all of that. You don't want to have it too liquidy, but you also don't want to have it dry at all. So you want to make sure that it's, you know, when you pat it, it's actually wet. So we're just going to finish dumping in all of that. And basically, if you ever need extra moisture, you can just add more broth to it. But it should kind of be squishy like that. I know it looks kind of gross to demonstrate, but it should definitely be wet and moist and not dry at all, because you want it to bake up, you know. So when you bake it up, you don't want it to be dry. And you can see little parts of that toasted bread in there, which just gives it that really nice flavor. So we're gonna then just go ahead and kind of like grab handfuls, or you can dump it all in if you are not holding a camera to film. So just go ahead and kind of pack it in to that pan. And I'm using a cake pan just because I do not have a square glass pan, but like a 9x9 glass pan would probably be perfect for this. I want to save my nice glass pie pan, so I'm not going to use that. So yeah, you just want to make sure that it is all packed into there nice and smoothly. So you definitely don't want any dryness around your edges. You want it to be nice and wet all around the edges. And then you are ready to refrigerate this overnight. I always like to store my dressing in the fridge overnight because it just gives it a really nice flavor, like all the flavors blend really well. You can do this the same day though, so this is the one thing I'm doing the night before. I'm doing 2 things. I'm doing this and the cranberry sauce. But you don't have to do it the night before. You can do it the day of. If you toast your bread in the broiler, your breadcrumbs, then you can just do it all right at the same time. But the purpose of refrigerating it again is to just have all of those ingredients really blend well and just kind of marinate overnight. So I like to cover my dressing with another sheet of wax paper. As you might have noticed in my videos, I really like wax paper. I know it's not that common, or I don't really see a lot of other people using wax paper, but I really like how it seals in the flavor, and it just is super easy to just kind of pat in there, and you don't have to worry about like stretching it perfectly over the top and everything. So it just really holds that moisture in, and you want to make sure that your dressing looks moist like that, like it has like moisture coming up to the surface. It should be nice and wet. Like when you peel back that wax paper, it should look wet underneath. It should not look dry at all. So we're gonna just refrigerate this. So the last thing that I did the night before is to just set the table with flowers and a fruit basket, as I promised Franklin. And this is my painting Rejection in the background. It's a still life painting that I did, and it just seemed fitting with the food theme. So I'm going to call it a night, and then tomorrow I'll get going on the rest of the cooking. So good morning. It is Thanksgiving morning, and I'm getting ready to cook. I have everything planned out today. Really, it's going to be an easy day for cooking because we are not having dinner until Franklin gets off work at 6:30. So we've got lots of time. I do have some cool new artwork on my fridge from Langston with his little turkeys. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to a relaxing day and day with my kids, and everybody's home from school, so we're gonna get to it. The first thing on my list Thanksgiving morning is always cleaning the kitchen really well, and also like dumping all the garbages, making sure the laundry's done, because you just want to make sure that you have all of the pots and pans and dishes and knives that you need for the day, and also you know, all of the dinnerware to serve with, as well as just like a clean space to cook in, and enough towels and all that kind of stuff. So I just like to kind of do a once over cleaning and then get started. So a lot of people use different cleaning solutions, and for the kitchen, I like to use rubbing alcohol because it's kind of just a cheaper disinfectant, and I just kind of put it on like a scrub pad and then just go ahead and wipe down and scrub everything. So I'll speed this up a little bit for you. So I'm not going to do a whole like boring cleaning video. That rubbing alcohol also is non-toxic, so that's a good thing. I also use vinegar and baking soda on my stovetop, and those things also are non-toxic. Like, I just like to clean the kitchen with things that are technically edible, so that I don't have to worry about any food touching like chemical cleaning supplies and things like that. So the next thing I'm doing is just putting in a little bit of a Scentsy bar. This is called Welcome Home, and it just smells like the holidays, so that kind of just sets the mood with kind of, you know, fragrance in the air. So in addition to the fragrance and having a clean kitchen and clean house, I also like to have kind of a tablecloth that's a little bit of a holiday vibe, and something in the centerpiece, whether it's fruit or flowers or candles or all three. And I like to just arrange my flowers kind of in a pattern that looks like they are growing. That's kind of, instead of just having them in a clump in a vase, just kind of like, you know, pull some of them up and make them kind of look like they're growing. Of course, you can see my painting. It's feeding Play-Doh to dinosaurs. No, you don't eat the Play-Doh. Icky poo-poo. You don't eat it. So the kitchen is all clean and organized, and the next thing I'm going to do is make a list of everything I'm cooking and kind of set a little time frame for what's going to come first, second, third. So I don't want to eat a big breakfast because of course we're going to be eating tons of food later on today. So what I do is I just put a cup of water, about 2 minutes in the microwave, and then I'm going to make one of these energy drinks. This is like a natural energy drink. It doesn't have any sugar in it, no artificial sweeteners. It's Got vitamin A. Can't really see this. Like vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, it's got thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, vitamin B6, folate, vitamin B12, pantothenic acid, zinc, copper, chromium. So, and it's got, it doesn't have much potassium, which is important for me because I can't have too much potassium because I have really low blood pressure. So it's a good, like if you have high blood pressure, you want potassium, but if you have low blood pressure, you don't want extra potassium. So anyway, it's for like adrenal health and vitality. And so it's like, it kind of is not even just an energy drink, it's also just like a supplement in a sense. But I like the mixed berry flavor. If you ever want to try it, just let me know and I can give you the link, or maybe I'll put the details in my description, because it's from People United Reaching Everyone. PURE is the acronym for that. And yeah, we just basically get like this every month. So it makes you feel like really healthy and awake and alert, like not just like a rush where you have a crash, but actually like it makes your brain function better. I don't know how else to describe it, but it just kind of like wakes you up. And I'm kind of feeling a little tired today, and I also, like I said, don't want to eat a huge breakfast, so I just like tear or cut off the end and then pour it into hot water if I want more of like a tea in the morning, and then just grab a spoon and stir. On hot days when you want a cold drink, of course you can just add it to cold water, but yeah, it's just a clear liquid. I almost feel like it's like a cranberry hot toddy or something. Not really that tasty, but I mean, I don't know, you kind of like can psych yourself into it just because it feels so good after you drink it. Within like 10 minutes you'll start feeling a pick-me-up. So I have a little bit of a dilemma because this was the only bag of pecans left, or pecans. And it's only like 1 cup, and usually you need like 1.5 or 2 cups or something to make a pie. So I'm gonna go ahead and just break these into pieces, and I think I'm gonna try and make like either small, I think I might make like some smaller little pies with these pieces. So I just break these into halves or pieces. They're not, you know, small pieces. They're just little chunks. You know, you don't want to like whole, or I don't like whole nuts in my pecan pie. And then add about like half a cup or so. I don't know if that's half a cup or maybe 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar, with about 3/4 of a cup, or maybe it's 2/3 of a cup or so of corn syrup. So you can use dark corn syrup and white sugar. I don't have any dark corn syrup, so I'm just using the brown sugar. And we're just going to turn this on kind of a medium high and start incorporating this until it cooks down to kind of like a thick texture. So just kind of let it bubble a few minutes, 3 minutes maybe, and then take it off. So this is what you want it to look like when it's boiled down for a few minutes, just nice and thick and rich. It should have that nice dark brown color from either your brown sugar or your dark corn syrup. Meanwhile, I melted a couple tablespoons of butter. I'm still sipping on my energy drink, by the way. So, but yeah, a couple tablespoons of butter, because we're going to add that. We're going to incorporate that into the mix. I also beat up a couple eggs. Again, this is about kind of like a half of a pecan pie recipe because I just don't have enough pecans to make a full pecan pie. And by the way, this is my apple cider vinegar over here, which is just like hanging around. I actually had to toss my first batch because I'd added too much sugar, so the sugar content got off, and it got like, you know, if that happens because it'll get like a little bit of like mold around the top. So you just have to toss that. But this actually has some really nice fermentation bubbles. It's been going for a couple weeks now, and there's no mold, no issues with it. It's basically at the hard cider stage, so it's not vinegar yet, but it's getting there. So back to the pecan pie here. We've got our syrup, and you want it to look kind of almost like maple syrup consistency and color. And it should be kind of thick like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to beat this into the eggs, the beaten eggs. So what I do is just add like a little bit at a time and beat it, you know, because you want to like gradually incorporate those eggs. You don't want the eggs to get cooked. So just kind of beat that and then add some more. And beat that. And then, and it'll kind of like, it's kind of thick and gloppy. I don't know how else to explain it. You could use an electric mixer. It'd probably be a lot easier than using a fork. And I think I'm going to actually put my camera down just so that I can actually beat it a little bit more rigorously, because it's hard to like hold the camera and just do this with one hand without actually holding the bowl. Okay, so I grabbed a whisk and just beat it vigorously. And again, there should be no lumps. It should be completely clear. There should be no pieces of like cooked egg or anything floating around in there. It should just be super clear. That's the difference in a good pecan pie and a pecan pie that has like little lumps and kind of chewy texture type things in it. So this is your pan, and you can see that that sugar mixture is already kind of stiffening up. So yeah, so we're gonna just put that pan away, and now we're gonna mix the melted butter in with this mixture, as well as the pecans. And you can add a little bourbon, you can add some, I'm going to do vanilla extract. I don't have bourbon on me. I'm actually going to do vanilla extract and just a couple drops of butterscotch candy flavoring, because I just think that that nice like buttery taste is just so good with the pecans. Yeah, you just want those pecans to kind of soak in there. Pecan pie is really easy to make. You just have to, the main trick is just getting those eggs beaten with that sugar and corn syrup mixture correctly so that they don't scramble. Alright, so I'm going to add some of my vanilla. The nut aroma and that kind of caramely base, the eggs, the butter, the vanilla, that all just like smells like the holidays. So this is the butterscotch Loran oils flavor, and I'm just gonna add a couple drops because it's really like a high strength oil. So I'm actually gonna, I usually don't just pour it directly in, I'm gonna pour it on the knife over here. Yeah, that's about how much I want in there. Just a touch. Anything really high strength, you don't want to just like pour directly in, because if something happens and you get bumped and you just dump it in, then you're gonna have to start over. So you just want a little undertone of butterscotch, and I wish you could smell this right now. It smells so amazing. So now I'm just gonna make my pie crust, which, as you know, is just like a cup of flour, 4 tablespoons or so of Crisco and butter, whichever combination you want, and then you know, the salt, of course, mixed in with the flour first. This already looks so delicious, so I'm just gonna get the pie crust ready, and I think I'm gonna do like little, like in the little cupcake tins, you know, little mini pecan pies. So you probably don't need to see me make pie crust again, but just in case, this is like about a cup of flour, and then I'm going to just salt the flour, which means like just sprinkle enough salt to season the little bit of flour that you have in there, probably like half a teaspoon or something of salt. And then just kind of stir that around with a fork and incorporate the salt with the flour. Pie crust is so easy as long as you do the fat part right. So this is a tablespoon of butter or so, and then I'm going to add another, you know, few tablespoons of the Crisco, and I'm not going to put any sugar in this pie crust because pecan pie is so sweet that really you don't need any sugar. So you've got the butter and the Crisco, and of course I've already got flour on my sweater, which is how it goes, because I just wear old clothes when I cook instead of an apron. Then I just change my clothes before dinner. So, or change my shirt. Usually I don't get that much stuff on my pants. I just, you know, wear an old like baggy t-shirt or sweatshirt or sweater, and then just take it off, change, sit down for dinner, and you're all good to go. So you're just cutting this in with a pastry blender, which means you're basically just doing like this kind of a motion to incorporate the fat with the salt and flour mixture. So you just want to kind of like cut it into pieces. You can also use 2 butter knives if you don't have a pastry blender. You can use 2 butter knives and just cut crisscross with the butter knives. So yeah, you just want to make sure that, and some people even use like a food processor or something for this. I don't know. I'm old school. I like to do things by hand because that's just what I'm familiar with. Probably be doing it like this till I die, even if there's some new invention that's faster or something. So you want your pie crust mixture to look about like that. And when it's in those little flaky pieces, we're going to add the ice water. So you just get water in a cup and some ice. Which I honestly should have had ice water ready, but yeah, so just make sure the water is really cold, because what it does is, like, if it's warm water, then it'll melt some of that butter in there. You don't want any of that fat to melt before you make, you know, your rolled out pie dough. So then I just kind of shake the bowl around a little bit, and you can see it start to form some clumps. And then stir. You just don't want to over stir. You don't want to overwork it. I emphasize this every time that I make pie dough, so I'm sorry if it's redundant. But you want to just kind of like barely touch it before you get it in the pan, because it's what makes it so flaky. It's the same with biscuits. Like, you don't want to overwork your biscuits. And a lot of people just start like kneading and doing all this other stuff, and it's just I was watching This Is Us, their Thanksgiving episode the other day, and I don't know if anybody watches This Is Us, but like the Rebecca character, she was just like kneading and kneading into the pie dough, and I was like, no. I think it was just she was pretending to knead the pie dough to be cooking. for that scene. But anyway, so you've got your clean surface and you're just going to sprinkle a little bit of flour to roll out that. So when it gets into basically like a clump like that, you know, I just go ahead and grab that. Now for these, I'm actually going to be rolling out a sheet and then cutting them with a circular cutter or glass, just a little drinking glass probably. So yeah, you just want to kind of grab your pie dough, and then if there's like little crumbles left, just add a little bit more water. You don't want it to be sticky, but you also don't want it to be like overworked. You don't want to be dry, you don't want to be too wet. I know it sounds hard, but it's really not. So then you just put your pie dough down, and we're going to be rolling this into just one big piece today because we're making these little pies. So grab your rolling pin or a wine bottle or a whatever, something cylindrical, a drinking glass, whatever you can find. That if you don't have a rolling pin, there are so many ways to make everything that you can literally substitute in all kind of ways. So you just want to make sure that it's floured enough to where it's not going to stick on the cupboard or on your rolling pin. I feel like it might be sticking to the cupboard this time for some reason. I might not have gotten enough flour underneath because I was talking and not paying attention. But yeah, you just want to roll it out nice and thin. And then we are going to cut these in circles because we have the pie. I'm trying to see, like, now I have to find out the right circle. Okay, so I found a nice mug that's going to be a nice circle pattern. So you just kind of do that, kind of twist it like you're screwing on a cap or something. And we've got 4 nice circles, which is going to be plenty of pecan pie for me because it's just me. And I'm just going to put these in. This is kind of a larger muffin tin, so I'm just going to kind of press these down into the muffin tin. And I'm not going to worry about a fancy crust lip or whatever. I'm just going to kind of push it down a little bit to make, you know, just kind of a little crust, but it's just so, they're so small that you really don't want to, again, overwork the pie dough. So that's going to be about what it looks like. So just do that with all 4 of your pastry shells. I seriously need a bigger kitchen because I never have space. Someday, well, maybe I don't need a bigger kitchen. It would be handy to have a bigger kitchen. A very small kitchen. It's a very like apartment sized kitchen, which is fine. Not complaining. I'm just glad I have like a stove that works and a refrigerator, even though our refrigerator is tiny, tiny. When the landlord replaced our fridge, it was like a regular sized fridge, and the fridge went out after renting for a few years, and then when the landlord replaced it, they brought like this little dinky small one. It's like a 2/3 of the size of an actual fridge, so it's really small. But anyways, that's a big side note. All right. So we're just going to finish pressing that pie dough in, and again, very gently, so that you have your little tartlets. I'm going to actually use, now I don't often do this because I don't really like to overwork pie dough, but if you turn it upside down, it can kind of seal, you know, into itself better because there's less flour on the next piece or whatever. There's usually less flour on the top of what you've rolled out than on the bottom. So I'm just kind of piecing this together to roll out a little bit more. Just see if I can get a couple more crusts. Because I feel like I could probably do all 6 of those. I don't know, with my filling. So hopefully these crusts are not too stiff. There's one, and we're just gonna not waste anything today and make it all into one last little crust, just to fill up the 6 tart or 6 cupcake or 6 muffin tin or whatever. All right. So as you know, once I'm done with this, I usually gather it up, and you can bake these little pieces of crust with cinnamon and sugar on them, or you can toss them, and you can save the flour, sift it for the next pie or whatever else you're making. Just make sure that you get up all of that flour before you actually grab a washcloth to wash down your surface. It just washes so much easier if you've already kind of like cleaned up most of that flour and scraped the counter. If there's any places that pie dough have actually stuck, which mine didn't really stick today, so we didn't really have that problem. So yeah, dust yourself off so you don't have flour all over your own self. And then we're going to fill these up and pop them in a 375 degree oven. And we're going to actually, I can't even see the numbers on my oven, so I just have to kind of like guess, because you turn it on at 350, so I just hit it another couple times to get it to approximately go to 375. Because the display doesn't work. This is an older house, which is fine. It's just one of those rentals where, you know, things break down from time to time. Got older appliances, stuff like that. So, yeah, we're gonna just go ahead and we've got all 6 of our little crusts. You can see that these last 2 aren't as even or whatever perfect as the other ones, but they're there. And we're gonna just go ahead and take our pecan mixture, which is gonna be thicker now. I don't know if you can see this, it's like thickening because the butter and everything is starting to cool, so it'll be nice and rich and creamy. And you want to make sure that you don't just put all the syrup in one and then just the pecans in another. You want it to be kind of even, so I'm going to look for a ladle. your little soup ladle going so that you can kind of scoop up an equal amount of the syrup and the pecans. And you don't want to overfill these, but you know, you can definitely fill them to the top or to the bottom of that rim of the crust. And again, if you want to make a regular size pie, then just double this recipe and just, you know, roll out the crust for the pie. I just didn't have enough pecans to make that regular size, so I figured, I was guessing, I was like, this will probably be about enough for these little, like, tartlet things or whatever you call them, little mini pies. I don't know what the definition of a tartlet is, but this guy got too many pecans over here, so I'm going to just kind of like move a couple around. So yeah, you're good to go. So this is what your pecan pies look like before they get put into the oven. And if you wanted to, you could create like a cuter little crust around the edge or whatever, but I just want the crust to stay flaky and not be overworked. And also these are just for me basically, so I don't need them to look super fancy. So these are going in the oven at 375, probably for about 25 minutes or so. I'll just kind of watch them and see how they are looking. You want the pecan pie filling to kind of like set up to where when you touch it, it's like custard, it's kind of thick and solid and custardy. So I decided as long as I had all the stuff out, I'm just going to go ahead and make a little sweet potato pie. Because I have extra time on my hands. Pies are so fast and easy. So I just made the same recipe for one crust pie that I just made for the little tartlet things. And I'm just going to go ahead and brush the bottom of this pie crust with butter and then put some brown sugar in there and bake it for 15 minutes. Then go ahead and put the filling in and bake the pie. So yeah, that pie crust is ready. So after about 25 minutes, I just put a little foil tent over the top of those little pecan tartlets, and then this is the crust for the sweet potato pie that's just going to bake about 15 minutes. So these little pecan pies took about 30 minutes total, about 20 minutes on 375, and then about 10 more minutes with a little foil cover on 350. So I'm just kind of popping them out of the tins. And if you wanted to even make this easier, you could line the tins with a little foil or something, but pie crust usually releases pretty easily because it's got such a high fat content, so you don't really need to grease anything. These smell so good. The difference between these and a full-size pecan pie is that you're going to, of course, get more crust. So I think it would be extra good to serve these with a little whipped cream, just because, you know, that would add to the flavor of the filling, like kind of blended in with the crust. They're so rich and beautiful. I cannot wait to eat one, and I don't think I'm going to be able to wait till dinner. So another way to check if your smaller pies are done is just to look at the bottom and make sure that it's golden brown. You don't want the bottom to be too pale. Also, you don't want it to be burned, of course. Langston's eating his nice little Hot Pocket for lunch, making a mess on his shirt. Bye. Franklin's out the door to work. He got a job, so he's working part-time. And I decided to take a minute to post a little selfie on Instagram to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving. I'll mention that I am enjoying this cranberry orange holiday soap, the hand soap. It smells so good, and I like to use like a nice smelling soap, hand soap, just in my kitchen while I'm cooking, especially something that goes so well with the flavors of a Thanksgiving meal. So for the sweet potato pie, and I have a full video on this in another video, but I just cooked down some cut up sweet potatoes, and I'm gonna put like 2.5 handfuls, or about 2.5 cups of those cooked sweet potatoes. These are hot, so be careful with your hands. But yeah, somewhere around that. And then that's about 2 really big sweet potatoes, or 3 kind of more medium ones. And then I'm going to add my half and half. So for the half and half, you just want to add about, like, I don't know, kind of like cover it, maybe like 1/4 cup or so. And then you want to add your spices, your cinnamon. I'm going to add a little bit of nutmeg. And then I add a little bit of my pumpkin pie spice blend, even though I don't make pumpkin pie. I have this pumpkin pie spice blend, which is like just a nice blend, but I like a little extra cinnamon and a little extra nutmeg, which is why I use those two as well as that blend. And then I'm gonna just let that sit for a minute because I want it to cool off, because those sweet potatoes are still steaming a lot. So I'm gonna let it cool off a little bit before I add the 2 eggs into it. And my pie crust is ready. Meanwhile, I have been brewing a nice little cup of just black tea. And since I only had that energy drink earlier, I am going to have a little breakfast. It's not going to help my waistline any to eat pie, but nonetheless, I am going to dig into one of these nice pecan pie tartlets with my black tea, and I'm going to add just a little splash of that half and half to make it nice and rich. So I'm gonna find a plate because I want to show you like what the middle of this pecan pie looks like when I cut into it, because they're just tempting me, honestly. So your pecan pie should just kind of fall apart easily, and this is what the middle should look like. It's got a nice kind of custardy part, and then the pecans on the top. This part should be nice and thick. Oh my gosh, it tastes so good. I'm gonna have to move this pie crust so that I can actually sit here and enjoy this. So delicious. And once again, that pie crust is just really flaky. Falls apart. I don't know if you can really tell because it's hard to tell, but like when you bite into it, it should just like dissolve like that. Just like crumble. Shouldn't have to chew pie crust. 2 eggs. So you're gonna just drop those eggs in and then add some vanilla, and the spices and half are already included, already in there. And we cannot forget our sugar. And Again, this cranberry orange soap smells so good. And it's from Duchess of Soapshire. She's on Etsy and on Instagram. So you have to check her out. So yeah, sugar. We want sugar, probably like, I don't know, half a cup or something. Maybe a little more. You want a little sugar in there with your sweet potatoes. You've already got your half and half in there. We're now going to blend it and see if it looks right. If it looks right, we'll go with it. If it needs something more, then we'll add a little touch of whatever. Okay, so once we've finished blending, we're just going to take the mixture out of the... Did you want bubbles? Come to Mama. Woo, bubbles! Langston needs a bubble break. We interrupt this program for bubbles. Woo, bubbles! Franklin got him going on the bubbles today before he left for work, and now Langston wants bubbles. So let's see if I can get this filling into the pie pan before he requests more bubbles. This is, oh, here he comes. Here he comes. Here he comes. Bubbles. Woo! Bubbles. Now here it goes. It should pour in like this. It shouldn't be, you know, so thick that you can't pour it into the pie pan. So, Langston, I know you want more bubbles. And this will puff up in the oven, so you know, you want it to be full, but you don't want it to be like to the point where it's like going to overflow your pie crust. So you just want it right up to the nice rim of the crust. Looks beautiful. So she is going to go in the oven at 350 for, I don't know, probably like about 50 minutes or an hour or so. You see that beautiful sweet potato pie. So next on the menu is the yeast rolls. So we're going to make, today I'm going to actually make Parker House rolls just because I haven't made those in a while, and it's a little different process than my yeast roll recipe. So first of all, you want to get a big bowl and run some water over your wrist to make sure that it's just barely warm. You don't want it too hot. So to adjust the temperature just to get about, like, just cover the bottom of that bowl with water. It's probably about a cup or so. You know, someday I swear I'm going to measure these things. But anyways, yeah, it's like that much water. So it's about a cup. And then go ahead and get your yeast out. Always keep your yeast in the fridge, and we're going to need 2 packages of rapid rise yeast. So I just have 1 package left in this little triple pack. This is just rapid rise Fleischmann's yeast. And I'm going to need 1 more pack. I should cut these old ones off that I've already used, huh? But anyways, yeah, so we're just going to use 2 packs of yeast. Make it rise nice. And just go ahead and let that yeast sit in the water for about 15 minutes or so and get nice and kind of foamy. You do want to stir with either a little whisk or a fork just to kind of get that yeast mixed in there. So you want to just kind of stir in either with a fork or a whisk that yeast into the water. And you can sprinkle a little bit of sugar over there as well once the yeast is dissolved, just to kind of get the yeast active and working. So then you're going to melt, when your yeast is dissolved, melt a couple tablespoons of butter, and then get some whole milk or whatever milk you prefer, and just kind of pour that in to cool off the butter. And then we're going to actually use a half of an egg, which is like one egg beat up and then divided in half. So we don't want too much egg, so we don't want it to be too enriched of a dough. And then you want to just kind of like run a little bit of that over your wrist just to make sure that it's not too hot from that melted butter, and this is just right. So we're going to then dump that into the yeast, the dissolved yeast. We're also going to add some sugar. Add, I don't know, probably like a cup, maybe third a cup, a little under a half a cup of sugar. Whisk that together with either a whisk or your fork. Then you want to make sure to season it with salt. I usually do about a teaspoon or so of salt, just because that's a lot of liquid and flour, and you don't want it to be bland. You don't want it to be like not salty at all. Like you want it to be seasoned correctly for the right amount of the mixture, liquid mixture, plus all the flour that we're going to be using. So we are then going to simply add flour. So just like pie, I mean, bread is just like so basic and so easy once you get it down. Just dump in some flour until it looks about like this, and then we're going to stir it around. I'm going to try and film from this direction. I don't know how people film like above what they're doing other than just holding it in your hand. I'm sure that most of the time it's like a second person holding a camera or a phone, but I don't have that at all, ever available, it seems like. Once in a great while Franklin will be around to do that, but he's usually not that interested in just standing there holding a phone. So you can see all that bubbliness, which is really what you want. You definitely want it to be bubbly. All these like little bubbles around there. That means the yeast is happy. You want happy yeast, so it's gonna make your bread rise really well. And I'm probably going to actually make not just the Parker House rolls, but also just a loaf of bread, because it's gonna be way too many Parker House rolls if I make this entire batch into just rolls, because we just have 3 people. So if Isaiah was here, if Isaiah and Kenya were both here, which my sister asked her to change her name to Kenya, if you don't know who that is, back in about the same time, you know, a few years ago when I changed my name. So we have the same last name again, and but yeah, so this is getting thicker, getting closer. The first rise, you just want to make a sponge, like a really light dough. You don't want it to be too stiff. You want it to be able to just be made by stirring as opposed to kneading, because it's going to then make a lighter, fluffier dough, which is really what Parker House rolls are. But when you stop stirring, see how that dough moves? on its own. Like that's another good sign, like that it's got a lot of elasticity in it, and yeah, that's just some nice dough. So that's kind of like what's called a sponge, or just a kind of soft dough, very wet dough. And we're gonna let that sit for probably about like 30-45 minutes, or until it's doubled in size. You can see the bowl height there versus the bread. So we'll probably like wait till it's kind of like, you know, puffed up to about there. I like to get a tea towel wet and just squeeze out most of the moisture, squeeze it out nice and firm, and you know, with warm water, and then just stretch it across that bowl. Just kind of stretch it tight, because that's going to create a very nice and like humid and warm environment for that yeast to rise in. Also, I have my dishwasher on here, and this is right above the dishwasher, so it'll also kind of get some of that warmth from the dishwasher and then the humidity from that wet. So something that I really like to use for Parker House rolls is honey butter. So I just melt or soften a little butter and add about an equal amount of honey, or maybe a little less than the amount of butter. Stir it up, and then you can chill it so it solidifies, and then as it's chilling, just keep kind of whipping it with a spoon every 30 minutes or so to make sure that it's evenly combined, so that the honey or the butter doesn't, you know, separate from the other one. So I'm doing a little bit of prep for my mac and cheese, and I just chopped up finely some Gouda, some pepper jack, and some cheddar, along with some just green onions that I'm going to add to the butter when I make my roux. So I'm back. I actually had to change my shirt because that sweater was a little bit too hot. So just have my little polo shirt on here. So I'm going to do the oysters. I have washed the oysters, and they're kind of like just air drying out just a little bit, because you don't really want water on them when you put them in the egg mixture. So basically I just go ahead and flour all of my oysters, and then I'm going to dip them in 4 eggs beaten with a few tablespoons or so of half and half, just to kind of create like a dipping. And then what I did is I crushed up 2 of those little snack packs of Ritz crackers, just original Ritz, plain Ritz crackers. And then I added garlic powder and onion powder, and no salt, because the crackers already have salt on them, but pepper, and what else did I put in there? I think a little bit of oregano. Put a little oregano in there. Oregano is kind of good with oysters. So anyway, yeah, so I'm just kind of dredging these in plain flour to solidify that sort of jelliness around the oysters. I did try and wash off most of it, but inevitably there's always a little bit left. These said small oysters. I would more call these like medium oysters as far as the size. Of course, you know what they say about oysters. They're supposed to be an aphrodisiac, which nothing's happening for me in that department today or last year or next year probably. That's fine. But anyways, yeah, I do like oysters. Some people don't like them. I prefer pan-fried oysters. Just, I don't know, they're just so tasty. Raw oysters are kind of plain to me. Even if they're seasoned, I'm not a big fan of the sliminess. And I understand, you know, I can eat them raw, but I'd rather eat them pan-fried, with a nice breading and a nice little squeeze of lemon juice right over the top. So, a little drizzle of butter, a little squeeze of lemon juice. Delicious. So with seafood and fish of any kind, well, meat of any kind really, you want to make sure to clean all of your utensils and cutting boards and stuff like that with a little bit of bleach water or some kind of disinfectant. So I always also just want to like wash my hands really well when I'm working with seafood. So once you've got your oysters dredged in the flour, then you're going to get your nice little egg mixture out. And this is the breadcrumb mixture, but it's not really breadcrumbs, it's actually the Ritz crackers crumbled and then seasoned, because I just like how that works for oysters better than actual bread, like, you know, shredded breadcrumbs. So we're just going to take the oysters and put them in that egg mixture and then drop them into that nice seasoned cracker crumb mixture, and you should have a nice little breaded oyster. I'm prepping these ahead of time because I want to have them ready to just pop in a hot pan and fry right before we sit down. In fact, there are a lot of things that need to be done right before we sit down for dinner. Like, there are a lot of things you kind of need to do right at the end, like the gravy and the glaze for the ham, like the final broiling of the glaze and the mashing of the potatoes, and like the fresh green beans really can't be done in advance because they'll just go cold and limp. And the mac and cheese is always just best right out of the oven. So just a lot of things are better right, you know, just save right for the end, honestly. So I'm accumulating a nice amount of breadcrumbs on my fingers, which is fine. It always happens whenever you're breading the stuff to fry. The only way around that really is to like dip it in this mixture and then just, you know, dip multiple ones at a time and try and, you know, get them like shaken around inside of the breadcrumb mixture, like in a bag or whatever, you know. I mean, there are like tricks, but honestly, I don't really care about a little bit of breading on my hands. It doesn't really bother me. I know it sometimes bothers people, so you can get around it if you really want to, but so I had 2 packages of those Ritz and I'm kind of running out, so I might have to make a little bit more of that breadcrumb mixture because you don't want it to get gloopy to where it's not really coating the oysters, you know, like in a fine way. Meanwhile, it smells like my sweet potato pie is done and ready to come out of the oven. So I'm going to grab that. You can really see how beautiful that looks. And you can tell that it's done just by like the top kind of springs back. I'm burning my hand. Or you can insert a butter knife to make sure. I can just tell that it's done by looking at it. It shouldn't jiggle anymore. It should smell done. I mean, you know, there are ways. These are the ones with the Ritz crackers breading on them. And these are the ones with the cornmeal and corn flour breading. You can see they have a little bit of a different color. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover these with saran wrap, pop these in the fridge, and let them just kind of chill for a little bit while everything else is getting ready. Always hard to find room in the fridge for everything when you're making a lot of stuff. So just need to take a little bit of time to appreciate how beautiful this sweet potato pie is, and also need to cut into it and just kind of see what the texture is like on the inside. And it's sliced up really beautifully, looks amazing. So we're back with our bread, and it has risen for about 45 minutes, and we're just going to kind of punch it down. Again, it's a soft dough, so you want to turn it on a surface with a lot of flour. Just kind of work some of that flour in initially before starting to really knead. You don't want to over knead this dough because you do want to keep it really soft, because Parker House rolls are really soft. So what we're going to do once we kind of work in a little bit of flour is we are going to roll it out into a rectangle. And by roll it out, I mean kind of like pound it out a little bit with your hands. And we're going to be getting a cup and making circle cuts out of this dough. You want to just keep making sure that you have enough flour underneath, because you really don't want this dough to stick to the surface, and you want to keep working in a little bit of flour as you go, just to again make sure that it's nice and kind of springy. Should be a soft dough, but it also shouldn't be too sticky of a dough, if that makes sense. So it shouldn't be sticking to your hands. It should be nice and springy. So once you get it kind of rolled out into a nice rectangle, which is going to look very similar to how you make like cinnamon rolls and that kind of thing, you're going to get a cup with the right size of a mouth on it, and just cut circles all the way around. Now bread dough is not like pie dough, so you can easily recut, you know, like re-knead it out and cut additional circles, because it's not going to get stiff like pie dough right away. But for now, we're going to kind of just have these circles like they are. So you're going to kind of make sure you got all the excess flour off of it. Stretch that circle into sort of an oval. And then you're going to get some melted butter, which is in this bowl, and a brush, like a basting brush. Just kind of soak that brush in there, and you're going to spread melted butter on the roll and then fold it in half like that. And then just go ahead and place it on your greased cookie sheet. And just continue, like repeat with the other ones. Shake off the excess flour, brush on the melted butter, fold, and gently lay on the pan. Stretch, brush, fold. This is what you want it to look like when it's folded. Stretch, brush, fold. And these are just going on a cookie sheet that has been greased with Crisco. So stretch, brush, and fold. And these are super soft rolls. They're just like melt in your mouth dinner rolls. And they already obviously have butter in the center, so they don't even really need to be buttered. Like if you want honey on them, or jam or jelly, or if you want to just eat them with your meal, or in my case I made some honey butter, so I'm going to spread the you know, have the honey butter on the table just as a little extra condiment, but you don't really need it, you know. It's like you can just eat these straight off the pan. Super delicious, very tender dough. All right, so I have one left. Now, that was kind of an odd number, so I'm actually going to make 2 more. And you can just kind of pinch together the dough. Just make sure that you've pushed it out and you get that circle. Brush the butter, fold. All right, one more. I actually thought I was going to have enough for a whole loaf of bread, but I decided to make a bigger pan of these, so I don't have enough for a whole loaf of bread, but I'll just do like a few smaller rolls on the side. Last one, brush and fold. So now your pan should look like this with all your Parker House rolls, and they are all arranged. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 of them, which is plenty for us. Now, if you don't want to do the whole brushing and folding thing, and you decide that you want to make just a small loaf, you can make just a small loaf of white bread if you have a smaller loaf pan, or you can roll this out and make cinnamon rolls or caramel rolls, or you can just pinch it off and make some regular dinner rolls, which is what I'm doing. So just kind of make equal sized balls of dough. And then you're gonna get some kind of like a cake pan or whatever. I'm just gonna brush it with butter since I have all this butter here anyway. It's the easy way to grease the pan. And then to make the rolls, you just kind of do like this. You're just tucking in to make, you know, kind of like kneading all the ends into each other. I don't know how else to describe it, but you're like kind of so that the top is nice and smooth. So I'll kind of do it in slower motion. I'm like folding as I grab and just feeling like, does it have the right amount of flour? You know it has the right amount of flour when it's not sticky. So when it's not sticking to your hands, that's when it's got the right amount of flour. So again, these are just regular yeast rolls, and that made a nice little pan of 5. So all my dough is used up, and again I gotta scrape my cupboard to clean it, and we're gonna let these rise for probably another 30 minutes before we bake them. So these are the Parker House rolls in the oven at 350, and they only take about 15 or 20 minutes to bake. So I'm just prepping my ham for baking, and it's gonna go in the oven at the same 350. Because I have to do the ham in the bottom, and then those rolls, and then these rolls are getting a little bit brown on the top, but I think they'll still be okay. They just will probably be a little bit brown on top. It's better to have a top that's brown than a bottom. So here are the rolls out of the oven. They look beautiful. They are a little darker than I typically make them, but they're right up under that top burner, so that's why. So I'm just cracking one open. You can see that the inside is just so tender and very fluffy. The crumb is really delicate on Parker House rolls and very buttery. So you can see that these rolls are so soft. Like they're like softer than like a piece of white bread. Like they just fall apart. And taste amazing because they're very buttery. And these are the dinner rolls that we did. And when I get them out of the oven, I just brush them with a little butter. Same butter that we were brushing the other Parker House rolls with in the middle before we folded them in half. But yeah. So just brush them with a little butter. It makes them nice and shiny. And they have a nice crumb as well. I mean, it's the same dough, so you can see that the dough is just very, very soft. But still, all the way done through, just very, very tender. So you want to remove those rolls onto a wire rack so that they don't get a soggy bottom. If you leave them on the cookie sheet or in the pan, they will kind of get a little bit of a soggy bottom, and that's no good. Nobody likes a soggy bottom. So both the rolls on the cookie sheet and then these rolls, you just want to take them out so that the bottom of the roll doesn't get moisture trapped under there with the steam, and then get like a wet bottom. So all the rolls are out. They're gonna cool for. So I'm just gonna put them in the rolls in a little basket, and they're still a little warm. So I'm just gonna kind of cover the towel back over the top, like so. One of the other things that I like to serve with Thanksgiving dinner is just kind of like a little pickle tray, or these are kind of sweet and spicy peppers, and then like some olives, just something to kind of contrast with a lot of the more high fat aspects of the meal. Franklin loves the olives. I like these little peppers. You can use different combinations of like a pickle tray to just kind of offset the carbs and the fats and all of the other flavors of the meal. I also like to just put this on the table with the fruit basket and the flowers and just kind of start setting things on the table. So the dinner roll basket and the pickle tray are going to go on first before the meal, so that, you know, if kids or whoever's kind of like stopping through wants to snack on something, there's already like some kind of light snacks on the table. And Franklin's probably going to dive into the olives as well as the fruit. This is a beautiful little cranberry dish that a friend sent me, and I love the ceramic details on it. It's got kind of a painted design on the inside and the outside, and it's a perfect size, as you can see, to hold all this cranberry sauce. And it even comes with a cute little matching ceramic handled spoon. So I got a turkey leg, a smoked turkey leg, and just kind of took some of the meat off of the leg, because I felt like even though I didn't make a whole turkey, we still need a little bit of turkey. So what I'm going to do is, in the stuffing or the dressing, I'm just going to kind of poke in some of the turkey. It's almost like reverse stuffing, like instead of stuffing the turkey, you're stuffing the stuffing with just some of the meat. So just kind of poking that in there, and getting this ready to bake the stuffing. That'll give me my turkey fix, since Franklin didn't want me to actually bake a turkey. So this is this stuffing, and it's sat overnight. That smoked turkey just smells really good, and we'll add a nice little flavor to it without having to bake a whole turkey or roast a whole turkey. So I'm going to actually brush the top with butter. And I just kind of have this bowl of butter with my little basting brush just kind of sitting out because of the Parker House rolls and everything else. So I'm just gonna kind of like brush some of that butter on the top. And then we're gonna go ahead and pop this in the oven with the ham. And I guess I'll pop it in the bottom. And I'm actually going to put a little piece of wax paper over top just because I don't want that to dry out at all. So just kind of covering it with wax paper. And what is next? Next is the mac and cheese. So I'm trying something a little bit different with my mac and cheese. I'm actually doing this brand of pasta, which is kind of a gourmet brand. It's supposed to be really good. So I'm trying it out, and it's the penne pasta. And then I'm also going to put it in a roasting pan just because I am kind of out of other pans. So I'm just going to put it in the roasting pan and fill it about up to here or so with the mac and cheese, and then get that nice gorgeous crust on the top with the cheese. So I'm boiling the pasta, and I have cut all my cheese into small little pieces, Gouda, pepper jack, and cheddar. And I just kind of went ahead and brushed the bottom of the pan and the sides with butter so that I'll get it ready. And then I'm going to make my roux, which is basically like a couple tablespoons of butter, and then you kind of whisk in like a tablespoon and a half or so of flour. And then I'm going to boil the noodles really quickly, and then just assemble all that, like remelt the cheeses into the roux, fill up the pan, top it with a little grated cheddar, put on the lid, and in the oven. So Franklin is watching the Saints game, and as I suspected, he is picking away at that pickle tray, mostly eating the olives. So this is the ham glaze I'm cooking down just to get ready to brush over the ham. It's just butter and brown sugar and some honey and a little bit of clove. Meanwhile, the dressing is cooking. It's looking really nice. It's close to being done, and it's just looking so nice and browned. And the mac and cheese is starting to bubble. Isn't quite done. I started sauteing the green beans, and I'm going to add some cottage bacon to those. You can see the mashed potatoes, or the Yukon Gold potatoes, are starting to boil as well. So everything is in process and getting close. This is the final little bit, winding down towards the end, and eventually we can eat. So this is the mac and cheese done, and the green beans are done. I set those on the table. The oysters are frying now, and the rolls and the cranberry sauce, mac and cheese. The ham is out. Franklin's starting to get the knife and get ready to cut the ham. Just whisking up a little bit of gravy for the mashed potatoes, just with broth and flour and some seasonings. Beginning of the spread. Franklin's already diving in. Add some of the oysters. So Langston's favorite part of dinner was the sparkling cider, cranberry flavored sparkling cider. He was pretty impressed with the bubbliness of the fizz. His little face. He drank about 3 glasses of this. And we have plenty of plates left over for leftovers. And this is our Thanksgiving. So I hope that you had a great time as well with friends and family, or maybe by yourself. I did have another piece of the sweet potato pie and the pecan pie with a cup of tea to close out the night with the candles. And I hope that everybody has a fun time getting ready for Christmas. These are the leftovers in the fridge. So thanks for hanging out with me during Thanksgiving yesterday. Sorry it took me a day to get this video up. I had a lot of editing to do because I shot too much film. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope most of all that you had an amazing time yesterday and a restful day today and over the weekend. So happy holidays to everyone.